Stay tuned for the most shadow banned channel on YouTube.
I've mentioned in the comments of some other YouTube channels when they're talking about camera equipment and things of that nature that there's no way I'm going to buy anything Sony. I'm not saying the equipment is bad. What I'm saying is they have a bad attitude. And therefore, they're ostracized. There's no way that they can participate with me unless they really know how to apologize and make whole again. And when you figure in the interest for about 40 years, it's going to cost a little something for them. But what's bothering me even more is that more and more companies are getting to be the way that Sony was, at least when I used to deal with them. This deserves a good talk about. Hello anyone, I'm Scott Payne. They call me the old farmer. I'm old-fashioned, and I admit it. In some areas. In other areas, I look far. I don't like to use the term progressive because that's tied with politics, and that's not what I'm talking about. But I'm excited about new things. That's the way that I'm progressive. Sony did things, and I won't go into what they did, that's not important. One time too many, and they got ostracized. That means when I was working, no Sony gear would come in. And that cost them a lot of money, And I found substitutes that were cheaper and equal or better quality. But again, I'm not saying Sony, the equipment that they put out, I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying their politics, their internal way of dealing with people needs some improvement. I hope it has, because I haven't dealt with them for 30, 40 years. I had the same problem with Zoom, not the where you do conference calling, not that Zoom. The other Zoom, the one that makes cameras and audio gear and things like that. They're out of Japan. Again, good equipment. I didn't want to get a DJI action cam, and for what I needed, the Zoom, even though it didn't have all the fancy doodads on it, it had very good microphones, so that met my needs. And I have their 6-track H6 recorder. Does a very good job. I like both pieces of equipment. But they're on the border of being ostracized. And this is what happened. Again, not talking about the equipment, it's the way that the company manages, the way that they deal with the public. I bought the Zoom 4K camera at the start of COVID. It was getting pretty bad. Supply chains were breaking down at the point. And I ordered it through one of the professional places that's very reputable. And it went on back order. I thought they had some in stock, but they had sold out of them. I missed it by, I think, 2 orders of getting one shipped to me. but they ran out. Okay. I didn't need it immediately. I just wanted a 4K camera that was simple to use, and it wasn't a type of camera that I had to strap to my cell phone. And that's why I don't deal with DJI equipment. As long as they need to be attached to my cell phone one way or the other, or a tablet, they disqualify themselves. So this thing went on back order. And every month or so, I'd send a email over to the company that I bought it from. Any word yet? And they'd come back, no. So it was about 6 months down the road. And I emailed Zoom directly in Japan. And all I was asking for, what is your best guess for sending out the camera? Not a hard, solid fact, but just what's the window that you think you might be able to get it out? And the email I got back was, I'm not allowed to ask those questions. You're not supposed to contact this email. On and on and on. And the email I used, technical support. So good equipment, but it will be harder for me to buy another piece of equipment from Zoom with that kind of attitude. Well, I bought a Fuji camera, Fujifilm camera XS20. Good little camera. I like the way it works. Couple of things that I kind of sit there and scratch my head on it, but that's true with everything like that. The remote and the external microphone go through the same port. You throw a soft switch which way you want it. So when I plug in a microphone, it takes 10, 15 stills before it settles down. But it's digital. I got plenty of room on it. It's just annoying. But I was having a technical problem getting some of the audio equipment to work with Fujifilm. And so I sent them an email, and they responded quickly, and the people that I got the response from were decent folk. Okay? But you can tell they were told a lot of don't do anything type response to the public. I wanted to know the wiring that they did on the mic input. There should be 2 hots and a negative, okay? And just what the wiring is, so that I can double check to make sure that the problem I'm having is that I don't have something out of whack and something at my end. So if I know that tip and ring are left and right channel and sleeve is the negative, well, then I know for sure that they're okay. The response I got back, that's proprietary information. We can't disclose it. What? I'm not asking the wiring diagram for the camera. I just wanted to make sure that they didn't do something different than what was normal. So I emailed them back, and I thanked them for the quick response. And I made sure that I realized it wasn't them, it was their superiors. But that really makes Fujifilm look absolutely foolish. Absolutely. The question I asked, are you on industry standards for your mic in or not? That's not proprietary. You need to know that to hook audio equipment up to the camera. Proprietary information. Actually, that is strike two. Strike one was when I ordered the camera, I looked the box over online and looked at the box that came, manual included. The manual is about 600 pages. Oh, we stopped doing that to save paper. Well, I can understand that. But you really should have some available for those who do need one. As I explained back to Fujifilm on this audio thing, that I was vastly disappointed that there was false advertising that I would get the manual. I need the manual. It's not I would like the manual. I need the manual so that I can actually figure out how to use all the features on this camera. To use the digital format, the only thing I find it's good for is how do I do a specific thing? Okay. How do I turn on and off this feature? Because there's a lot of features on this camera. Good features too. Good camera. The lens that came with it was a Fujifilm kit lens, and it is a fantastic lens. I got the one that was 18 to 55. Autofocus. But I do notations. They may call something very strange. For example, there is leveling circuitry that's in the camera that tells you whether one side is high and the other side's low, or you're aiming the camera down or up. It's got that feature. But how in the heck do you turn it on? Okay. It took me 3 hours of going through the digital stuff. Whereas if I had a manual, I would go through, find where it is, make a notation on the index page of what they call it. Okay, this is the leveling spot, in case I forget how to do it. Because some of the things you don't do all the time. And as I explained, when I was working, there is a manual that's about this thick, full page. Okay. Standard size sheets. It was a big manual. It's specifications. It's not rules and regulations on the basis of an employee must do this, an employee must do that. No, it's standards and technical stuff. And as I told them, I must have put an additional 25% more ink on that manual just from my notations. Because someone will say something one way and it kind of makes sense, but that isn't the typical way that it would be mentioned. Here's a good example. Folks know what an XLR plug is. That's a professional mic plug. It's got 3 pins in it and a barrel, and it locks together with the other. One side's a male, the other side's a female. Locks together. It's a balanced line. For 30 years, we just called them Canon plugs. Okay? Now it's kind of switching over to being called XLR. So this is why a manual for me is very important. So that I only have to spend the time once to find something, then I can make notations on the index page of where it is and what it's called. But I can't get a manual, even though the box says a manual is included. Now, the way I talked to Fujifilm on this, I said, I can understand you want to save paper. Part of its cost and part of its environment. I understand that. But you ought to run up 10,000 or 100,000, whatever you think it is, for those who actually need one. And then they request one and it's shipped to them. 1 out of 10 people would want the actual paper manual. But there's a legitimate reason for having it, in my eyes, and in the way that I do things. So it's been very difficult and very slow learning all the features on this camera. because I can't necessarily reference things together. Also, Fujifilm does not have the best menu system on the camera. So it's very important for me to have a hard manual that I can go through and make notation on, even though it would be difficult for me to read because of the floaters in my eyes. I can do a little bit at a time and figure out what's going on and see where things tied together. Because if you do a search on their digital manual, you want to find something in 42 different places comes up where it could be found. Now, which one is it for what I'm looking for? How to do it? Well, no, all has equal weighting on it. And so you have to, one at a time, go through the 42 different references to the particular thing you want, so you can eventually find the one that actually tells you how to do something, rather than a spot that says go over to this feature and turn it on. You know how a lot of manuals just say turn this on or turn this off, or reference to this spot. Now, I know I'm a different generation, and to be honest, I have the digital manual on my computer and on my phone. But that's for, okay, I forgot how to do it. How do I bring that up? But I really can't leave notes on it. So it's maybe 1/20th the value of what I need in a manual. Because I'll sit there and read a section over and over and over again until it's imprinted and I got muscle memory in my mind on what the particular thing is. Can't do that with a digital. You know, technically that's false advertising. The state of Michigan has an attorney general and a Better Business type thing up there that if you have a complaint, you can contact them and they'll contact the company to try to straighten it out. And if that doesn't work, then they come down and set fines on them. I don't want to do that to Fujifilm. But it's getting to the point that my original thinking, if I got a second camera of similar type, it would be a Fujifilm. Maybe one up from this one. Or maybe a used version of the XS20. Because then all the lenses would fit. Okay. I don't know why people will buy two different brands of cameras and have to have two sets of lenses for it. Professionally, maybe I can see it, but that's a waste of money. So I'm not that invested in Fujifilm. Again, a good camera, I like it. But I don't like their attitude. And I'm not invested that much into Fujifilm that I can't turn around and sell it off and go to another camera. And as with Sony, on these comments that I make when it's appropriate about different cameras and such, flippy screen was one of the important things that I wanted on a camera, and I would say, fine. If you're a photographer that doesn't need a flippy screen, just don't open it up. But even with photography, I need the flippy screen. Sometimes I have a camera 20 feet in the air. And there's no reason for me to have to spend $1,000 to hook up a screen to it, when if they had built it right. You get the idea. So sometimes we talk about Sony. Sony comes up, and there's an appropriate time that I never trash the Sony equipment. Never. But I do trash the company. And I tell them there's no way that unless Sony repairs the damage, and part of it is a formal apology, they could send me a camera and I just bury it in the backyard, because I wouldn't even want to give it to someone, because then there's another Sony product out in the field. I'll just bury it. That's how strong my negative feelings for Sony is. And Fujifilm is getting close to it, so is Zoom. Not yet, but they're getting close. Because if it's a reasonable request for something, it should be available. The response should be there. For example, the manual. If they only needed to print 10% of what they normally would send out with the camera, that probably would take care of the need for a hardcover manual. Simple things like, okay, are you on standard with your mic input? You know, industry standards, or have you gone off on a proprietary way of doing things? Many companies are willing to help in that way. Help you figure out how to interconnect your equipment to their equipment. But not Fujifilm. And I think in the long run, this is going to hurt Fuji, as it did Sony. Yeah, they got hurt pretty bad, because I don't try to get even with anybody. That is just a bad way of leading your life, carrying that around. I'm going to get even with them. Just think about someone or a company that did that, to hold that kind of thing to them. Okay? I'm going to get even with them. Well, I don't do that. However, if they're walking down the pathway and I happen to be in front of them, sometimes my foot gets in the way. And that's good enough for me. So what I expect of any business is a professional response to when a question is asked on how to do something. To you and me, it may be a silly question, but not to the person asking it. Many times I've answered questions when I was working before I retired. A lot of people would ask what technically would be stupid questions, but I never thought of them that way. I know they didn't, so let me explain it to you so that you know too. And I never gave away proprietary information. And I even helped competitors out, as long as it was not competing with what we were doing as a business. So I would help out, usually in a technical way. Sometimes it's getting supplies or services, and another company needs a little help, so I'll pick up the phone and call and help open the door for them. But it isn't going to compete with the business that I was working for. It's just the way that I do things. I remember one business that was one client we were dealing with was also dealing with a competitor at the same time, with equal amount of business. Okay, they were making about the same as we were making, but the other business was doing it wrong, and it so frustrated them on it. And I would explain to them how to talk to the other company so that they could understand what was going on. It isn't like we could get the business. We have all the business we're going to get from them. This is parallel purchases from this client, and there's no way that we could get any more. So after about 6 months, they're trying to deal with the other company on it. I said, okay, I'll go over and talk to them and explain the situation. And I talked to the owner of the business. And I think it embarrassed him that I came from the competitor and had to help him. But I wanted to make sure that the client that we both had was served the way that they wanted to be served. And they were flubbing it. And I told them who was flubbing it. For some reason, that person does not understand what's going on. This is what needs to be done. A, B, C, D, and the client would be happy. And they weren't doing that. They were doing it out of order. So the client was very frustrated. I didn't so much do it for the competitor. I did it because the client. They will see more value in what we do than what the competitor does. And if they have another something that they want to do that's different, then they'll come to us because they know someone is there looking out for their best interest. But I don't see that anymore in business. Very little. We've been with our insurance company 40 years. Why? It's an independent. Because if they can find another insurance company, and that's what an independent insurance company is, they just go out and they got a whole bucket full of insurance companies that they use. It isn't like only an Allstate or whatever. They could get Allstate if they wanted to, but they're an independent. They shop for the best deals for their clients. So we've been with them for 40 years through 4 owners, and they keep doing the same kind of business that they did from day one. They got our backs. They understand branding. You protect your brand. Sony doesn't understand it. Canon doesn't understand it. Nikon doesn't understand it. Panasonic doesn't understand it. Most of the grocery stores don't understand it. Business as a whole has lost the importance of what branding is and creating a loyalty that encourages people to stay with that particular brand, whatever it is. And when a brand screws me, I don't go back. And there's no way I will go back. And I will walk a country mile not to go back. It sounds like I've been ranting a little bit, but I kind of wanted to explain what is missing. I'm not asking for perfection. Just good business policy and understand wherever you can help your customer out, such as providing what they promised in the box and giving out information that was legitimate, nothing proprietary. What are the contact positions on your mic input? Tip and first sleeve is channels, and the long piece of quarter of the plug is the ground or common. And which one's the left channel, which one's the right channel? There are industry standards for that. I'm just was checking, are you doing that? And that's proprietary information. Well, with these businesses, my pocketbook is proprietary information, and you can't get in it. But I will support businesses that understand and will help when you need it. Usually it isn't much. It's a piece of information that someone more technical would need to know, but not the average individual. So you call up and ask about it. That shouldn't be in a manual what I was asking for, but that should be in technical support. We can see it in the car companies. The term going to hell in a handbasket, and that's not cussing, that's talking about a location. Hell, Michigan is like 40 miles to the east of me. Yeah, there's a Hell, Michigan, a town called Hell, Michigan. So, going to hell in a handbasket is a real thing. Car companies are destroying the trust that they have. Stellantis, you think I would buy a vehicle from Stellantis? I wouldn't even want to get one for free because the upkeep would be so expensive. And ever since General Motors went out of business and this company called GM took over, GM quality has gone down tremendously. Ford quality one? No, it's Ford. Where is the quality? I can't find it. So I'm taking the time to do this, and I hope people at the different companies will listen to this. Not specifically the ones I mentioned, and understand that if you don't protect your brand, and I'm not saying by copyright, I'm saying in the field, then people won't think of you. You know, the old question is, think of 4 banks, okay? Name off 4 banks. I'll give you a second in your mind to think off 4 banks. How would you like to be Bank 5? I wouldn't, because I wasn't even thought of. It's not on my horizon, Bank 5, or whatever number you want to use. And that's what's happening without protecting your brand. You're not even thought of. And if you're not thought of, you don't have an ability to sell product or service. You sell these things with a good profit without gouging and nickel and diming your customers. Ford having a $100,000 pickup truck? No, it probably cost them at the most $20,000 to build. Put $5,000 on it for the dealership, and you got a $25,000 truck. That's the real price of that $100,000 pickup truck from Ford or GM, somewhere around $25,000. But no, they want to gouge. They want the few to buy their product rather than the many. Well, starting out in my youth, I couldn't afford many tools, so Harbor Freight helped me out with the low-end tools until I could afford buying the better tools. And you know how I promote Harbor Freight. And yes, when they make a mistake, I rub their nose in it. But I'm pretty loyal to Harbor Freight because they're trying to do a good job for their customers. They're trying to make their brand important to the customer. And because of that, in fact, I just sent an email off. They had a flash sale for one day only. Doesn't matter what it was. Harbor Freight's starting to do flash sales. They think it's cute. I think they're a pain in the butt, but it didn't go out until 4 p.m. the same day. So I sent them an email. It doesn't do any good to send me this stuff if it's almost out of date by hours. I think Harbor Freight on that night was open till 6. I had 2 hours to get there. Well, flash sales usually don't move me because they're too much like Black Friday and Christmas, and you remember how that is. We only have 10 of these, but it's 10 cents on the dollar, whatever the product is. Not going to move on it. I'm not going to put myself in that thing. Now, if they did it for a weekend and put a fair number out there, I probably would go and get it. I would be stupid not to. But you're not going to make me rush over for something that I can't get because you only have 10 of them. And this flash sale concept is kind of like that in my mind, especially when it comes in at 4 p.m. And that's the time it was sent out. I looked at in the header for the time it was sent out. It was sent out at 4 p.m. Harbor Freight won't respond to me on that, but they'll fix it in the future so that doesn't happen. Because it defeats the purpose of what they're trying to do. And I'm just saying, hey, you did it wrong. And they'll listen and they'll fix it. Harbor Freight listens to their customers. And wherever they can, they will accommodate. Sometimes it takes a while if it's a new policy thing, but they can do it. So I've rambled on longer than a Lincoln-Douglas debate. Just let the companies know you want to be treated decently. And if you won't protect your brand, there's no reason why I should buy it. And protecting it means you treat customers decently. And you don't do the stupid things that all it does is hurt the name and causes trust. You want people to think warm fuzzies about your brand. And if you don't do that, you're doing it wrong. Thank you for watching. And please be safe.
We'd sure appreciate it if you could subscribe and leave a comment. You know how YouTube behaves. They won't believe you watched a video unless you leave a comment. Also, it would help if you ring the bell and do a thumbs up. As you know, if I find a good channel, I pass it on to you. So if you think it's appropriate, it would sure help if you passed us on to your closest 10,000 friends and family. But above all, give a helping hand to someone today. It's the best gift to give. It'll make you feel good too.
Don't forget to click like, subscribe, share, or ring the bell buttons on the Original Old Farmer channel. We enjoy reading the comments that you leave, and they do help the channel, so keep them coming. And once again, thank you for watching The Original Old Farmer.
The VFW National Home for Children, providing families of veterans and active duty military opportunities for growth and development in a nurturing community. Please consider a donation to help their children and families. I.C. Rhodes speaking.